chef, author, and humanitarian José Andrés, and America's Book Club host David Rubenstein viewed Catholic University's rare book collection.
Come on in. We are here. So we're going to see some treasures of the rare book collection of Catholic University.
So I want to start with what we have laid out over here, our first manuscript of the evening. This was copied in 1620, and it was intended for use in the cathedral in Seville. And what we have here is a gradual. So this contains all of the chants that were to be used in a church service. This particular volume is one of two, so it contains the chants from basically the beginning of Advent through just before the beginning of Lent. And then we have a second volume that takes you from Lent through the rest of the liturgical year.
Oldest book, or?
Not by a long shot, actually. In fact, the little
showing off now.
the little fellow next to it is a couple of centuries older. This was copied in Flanders, so the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, like the northern half of Belgium, in the 15th century, 1400s. And to me, this is just one of the most beautiful title pages we have.
1400s.
Yes, it's one of the most beautiful title pages we have in the collection. You have the little strawberry and sweet pea border there, and some gilt work as well. So this is a breviary. It's an office for the dead. So the last book I want to show you is this one. This is a new acquisition for us. Not nearly as beautiful as some of our others, but to me it's one of the most exciting recent acquisitions we have. This is a collection of pamphlets printed in Spain. A lot of them were printed between 1682 and 1684. And the one that I have on display here is sort of a mystical reflection on the appearance of a comet in 1682, which is the year this was printed. Now, 1682, we can actually say with a fairly high degree of certainty what comet that was. Halley's Comet appeared in 1682. So this particular copy of this pamphlet is one of two, we think, in existence. There's another copy at the University of Barcelona, but there's several other works in this collection that we believe we have the only copy still in existence.
Oh yeah, it's still in Getafe.
Oh, this is looks like a recipe book here.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Shane tell you about that one. He's the expert on this.
So this book actually, so we've heard you like cooking, so we brought out a recipe book from our archives. This is from 1909. It's the recipe book from Charlotte Woodson, who grew up here in the Brooklyn neighborhood of DC. So this was used by her mother, Cecilia, to teach her. So you can see some of the recipes, sunshine cake right here, little recipe. I also love just seeing rough puff paste. But my favorite opinion she has in here is she has scallop oysters, a lot of advanced cooking for a 14-year-old. But my favorite one here is scalloped onions. She clearly did not like those. She just has a big face going, ugh. And this is a photo of her. She actually worked, eventually moved to South America to work at the U.S. Embassy, both in Lima, Peru, and then in Bolivia. And this right here is also dates from roughly the same period. This is actually from the papers of Bruce Moeller, who served in World War I with the U.S. forces, and then worked with the American Red Cross to do aid relief in war-torn Eastern Europe at the end of the war, particularly doing food, but also heavily water relief in what's today Poland and what is Ukraine, particularly during the Polish-Soviet War of 1919 and 1920. So this is his passport and his Red Cross pass. And this right here is his notebook where he was planning how to go about getting things, like planning the logistical supplies. He has drawings of his water pumps, all of that working throughout. After the war, he actually then worked with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops to found their Department of Immigration, helping with refugees up through the 1960s. So he continued to do a lot of this work for the next 40 years as well. And then this is a little further from Poland in the 20th century. This is the Plan de Ayala, or the Plan of the Three Guarantees. So this is a Mexican and by connection Spanish history. So this dates from 1821, February 1821. It's a copy of one of the foundational documents of Mexican independence. This was written by the short-lived Mexican emperor, Agustin de Iturbide. And this is his personal copy that was emitted that has three guarantees that Mexico would be independent, that all social classes and ethnic groups would be equal, and that the Catholic Church would be the primary church. And we can see here, if we flip this, here's his signature right here. And it's an interesting story. He was only reigned for less than a year, but his family eventually found exile in the DC area and eventually married with a local family here whose the widow of it donated this to the university in the 1960s.
Welcome to the Oliveira Lima Library, the home of Manuel and Flora. And as I said, this library has been here 100 years.
Really?
It's 101 years old. This is the queen. So Carlota Joaquina was a Spanish woman who was only 10 years old when she married Don John, or the Prince of Portugal at that time. And then he became king and she became the Queen of Portugal. In the 1800, exactly 1808, Bonaparte invaded Spain. And Bonaparte was about to invade Portugal when the Portuguese family left for Brazil. So in 1808, her father and her brother had to give up the throne. And when she arrived in Brazil in 1808, she wrote a manifest. And the manifesto is about an idea she had that she should be the queen of all the colonies in South America. So she sent this manifesto, is the original, that she sent across South America and Europe too. Unfortunately, they didn't pay much attention on the manifest because they actually wanted to be independent of Spain. And they didn't really want to have a woman ruling the colonies. So they decided that Bonaparte was okay. So she did not achieve what she had in mind. But it's a great story, and she was really brave of doing that. This one is the one with blood. Solano Lopez was one of the worst dictators in South America ever. He was president of Paraguay in the 1800s. And he had this book with him when Paraguay lost the war with the Triple Alliance, which was Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. And this book is from 1724. This translation of, it's a dictionary. Guarani to Spanish. Wow. And it was found with him, and he has some of his blood, and was donated to Oliveira Lima by Solano Lopez's nephew, un sobrinho. And there is a dedication inside of the book. Wow. So it's quite special. Then I select this one because it's one of my favorites from 1699, and it's a book about the Brotherhood of Saint Anthony of Catagerona, which is a brotherhood from Bahia, Brazil. And it has the first Black saint, Saint Anthony of Catagerona. And he has a beautiful aquarella watercolor of the Saint Anthony. So it's quite special. So it's a manuscript. So it's about the brotherhood, and it's really pretty. The whole manuscript is a piece of art. So some people come here just to see this book. It's quite, look at this. It's amazing. So this other book that I selected is the first book about the Amazon, the river. And it's written by a Spanish Jesuit priest, Padre Cristóbal de Acuña. Mm-hmm. And it's written in a year that you may know, because that's when Portugal and Spain were together, but not anymore. And but just before that, every expedition that Spain did, they had to have, and Portugal did, it had to have representatives of both countries. Mm-hmm. So the head of the expedition in the Amazon River here was the Portuguese Pedro Teixeira. And then the one that was taking the notes was the Spanish, was Acuña. This one is one of the favorites of Marie, actually. It's a book from 1554. And it's a book about Peru. And Peru, was a new discovery at that time. And it's all about the geography and ethnography of Peru. So it's a very, very rare book. It's very few of these books left. And it tells you everything that they got to know about Peru in the first few decades that they knew the country existed, right? So this one is among the most valuable pieces of the collection. We have 10 of those watercolors. They were done by this Spanish engineer. He was also a cartographer and a good painter, and he was actually photographing the Amazon with his watercolors. And he did a fantastic job showing what the locals were doing. You even see them fishing here. You see boats at the Amazon at that time. And all of this is from 1781. So the watercolors are really beautiful. And there are books dedicated to this collection of watercolors, and we have the largest collection in the world. So that one is one of the favorites of Roxana, actually. It's a tortoise shell Spanish mantilla comb that belonged to Simón Bolívar's mother.
Oh.
So we have quite a bit about Simón Bolívar here at the library, and Oliveira Lima really wanted to know about the establishment of countries and frontiers and all that. And then it's the collection of menus that I mentioned. And here is one of my favorites. It's actually the menu from 1915 that was on the boat that they came from England during First World War to Boston, because he was a professor at Harvard. And this is the dinner that they served on September 22nd, 1915.
Very good.
It's really pretty, and that's quite special. The other one is that I thought you would enjoy seeing a chef from.
Yeah, from the time.
Yes, but you wouldn't guess when this is from. This is from 1892, and that's the menu. It's 31st of December, so it's New Year's Eve, and I actually do not know where it is from. So we would need to dig a little more about João da Mata.
Yeah.
But it has some bad handwritten.
Yeah, I was
invited, and then Christmas dinner or something like that.
This is French.
Yeah, so jantar is Portuguese, so it's a mix of languages.
It's a mix.
Yeah, and then he said something about Natalino, which was Christmas.
That's true.
So it's hard to tell, but it's really pretty. And then this one is my favorite. It has my hometown, Rio de Janeiro, and he was hosting a special event to promote Brazil in Europe. He was a diplomat, and he was ambassador in Brussels.
Right.
So so this is a picture of Rio, and this is the menu. And I'll have to tell you that you're gonna get a copy of this, an original of this. This one is really pretty. You want me to open this from Japan?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, very Japanese.
Yeah, look at that. The little sun is really cute. So the collection goes from 1888 to 1940. Oops, I'm sorry. I'll keep it. Okay. Sorry. It's also very delicate. And they used to do something interesting too. Look. Who was at the dinner? And sometimes he would draw who was sitting with whom, where. So some of the menus have that.
Amazing.
And I'll show you the boxes where you said you want to organize yours, right? So this is where theirs is. So they have about 300 menus.
Ah, great. Yeah,
I left them here for you to see.
Ah,
And this is how it's organized.
Yeah, I have some of mine like that.
So it's
This is great that they did that. Wow, that's a lot of keeping. I try to, I don't do it anymore.
I know it's hard.
But then when 100 years pass.
Exactly. And some of them are even older than 100 years old.
Yeah,
So
very French. You know?
very French, yes. They were Victorian, you know, in everything they did, actually. Flora was very Victorian. And you can see the wines they consumed, you can see the fancy stuff, and I heard asparagus is very common.
Wow.
Because a lot of the menus have asparagus in there.
Fascinating. Yeah, no, it's great.
Jose Andres also discussed his historic cookbook collection with C-SPAN host Peter Slen.
Well, we'd love to look at your library if we could.
This is one of the first books, 1900s.
Let's set this.
Yeah, but this one really talking to you about truffles and how to not only recollect them, but how to be able to become a true farmer, about how to use the trees to make sure that you will be able in 10, 20 years to recollect truffles. It's one of the first books that I'm going to show everybody how to become a true farmer, not use a hunter of truffles, but to become a farmer of truffles. So this book is super important because that Karem is master of chefs. So I have very much all of the books of Karem, all the books of Karem. Escoffier, father of French cooking, more modern father of French cooking. This one, 1912. This guy is legend. French cooking today without Escoffier wouldn't be French cooking probably. These ones are great. I mean, we could be, but before Escoffier, Gouffet. This guy is probably not so known as Escoffier, but nobody had more. This is important, Le Livre des Conserves. This came later after Appert, which I have it, but I don't know where they put it. The first book about canning ever, 1824. So this is Gouffet himself, but this guy was very legendary. Obviously, this book much later, 1869. Is this the first edition? Probably is his first. But this guy Appert in 1820, much later, 1810, 1812. 1812. This guy was the guy that invented canning at the request of Napoleon Bonaparte, who he will give 10,000 gold francs to anybody that will come with a way to preserve. You saw I show you preserves there? I wish I had the book. I don't know what it is. Probably I have it so well protected because it was not first edition, was used one-off. Was his scientific findings. You asked me before, is food science? I began with the answer yes, but very much food science. This guy was one of the first scientists to publish a book that was culinary, but in a way was a visionary. He showed a new method to preserve foods without having to salt them or air dry them or smoke them or cure them. He invented canning himself. So this was the follow-up, one of the best books on conserves. But first you needed the scientists to come up with a way, and then you could have amazing, talented chefs to even moving that movement even further. You can be reading all these books and will take you almost a lifetime. And this is only a fraction of all the cookbooks there are. Like, for example, these ones, I have more, but these are very important. And these are very much first edition. And people they don't print them anymore. But this is probably some of these, like, the Michel Gerard, probably is the 80s when it was printed first. This is probably the first I have in my house. This was the Robert Laffont. This was amazing because this is from the days that Michel Gerard opened his restaurant in the 70s. I think it was 72. The long story short.
And this is French, correct?
Michel Gerard is one of the initial fathers of Nouvelle Cuisine, next to Nouvelle Cuisine. Robert Laffont and all these books, you have the best chefs that made Nouvelle Cuisine what it was 70s, 80s. And if you don't have those books, you don't understand what was going on in France. At the moment that France just became, without a doubt, obviously the beginning and end of anything that had to do with cooking.
Could somebody who has never really cooked before pick that book up and be successful?
Yeah, many recipes are doable. Many. Gualtiero Marchesi, the father of Italian cooking. Joel Robuchon, master of masters, no longer with us. I mean, many of these guys are no longer with us. But some of these are the names of everything, right? So for today's people, you can go to ChatGPT or Grok and ask them, hey, what's going on? But you don't need sometimes. You only need to open one book, go through the book and understand what was happening in one moment, in one restaurant during 10 years. And this is fascinating. This is what this book tells you. If you open the book and you don't know anything about them, maybe you will not be able to understand in one moment in history that happened. But these Like every book, this is history in few pages. Like Jack Maximan, I mean, this guy was doing desserts but in savory before anybody. Some people made it before because back many years before, centuries before, people were making sweet ice creams with oysters right here in Virginia. But this guy, but if you don't know that, you don't understand. Books is the only thing that once it's printed, puts you into place what was happening at the moment the book was printed. So that's why for me, books are very important. One of the most beloved books in the history of America, unknown to Europeans or Asians or anybody else, but fairly known to Americans, is this one, The Joy of Cooking by Irma Rombauer. Let's see, because I have many editions. This was the first edition. And now The Joy of Cooking, we know, is very big and has tens of thousands of very short recipes, but this was the beginning. This one is very special because this one is signed by Irma Rombauer herself. And, you know, it's not like she was super famous when she printed this book, or like authors will be doing book signings the way maybe book authors do now. So this one was very, very important, printed in 1931. She got money after the husband passed away, and the inheritance. She wanted to do a book. Nobody wanted to do her book, so she paid her book herself. And so she printed her book very much on the first edition. Take a look now. Her family now even is a Rombauer winery in Napa that belonged to her family, to her ancestors. And here you have one of my most beloved recipes here, grapefruit cocktail. I put that one in the menu. In a restaurant I had called America Eats that was celebrating the early days of American cooking. Oh, this one, oyster cocktail with ketchup. This is the days that ketchup was written ketchup still, before it began changing, I think, for marketing purposes of somebody. I love the word ketchup far away more. But look at oyster cocktail with ketchup. But no ketchup as we understand it today, the ketchup of the old days, which sometimes they say, yeah, not everything in the old days used to be better. But there's certain things that they were far away more pure than now. I don't have anything against the ketchup sauce we eat today. It's quite too commercial. Some of these ketchups of the old, and she has some recipes here, they were so much better. But here is fascinating, this book. Now, this is nothing compared to The Joy of Cooking, but here is where the beginning of Joy of Cooking starts and became a legendary book in the history of American cooking, because I have a feeling everybody has a Joy of Cooking at home.
Chef, would we find Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking on here?
I have Julia Child signed by her, but I don't know where I would have it. If we spend time, we can find it.
Was she important, in your view, to the American culinary
Obviously, it
development?
was. For me, I began watching. I mean, I didn't really understand because, it was difficult to understand a person that didn't really have a restaurant per se. But obviously, I remember watching her shows, and even for me, it was a way of, believe it or not, I was learning English upon arriving to America and watching the shows. If I remember right, in PBS and others in the channel she was. But she was so funny in the way. But obviously, there you realize the influence. She had then James Bird, which also they cooked together. Even they had different roles, but the importance of Julia Child, I think more than her books, obviously, was her TV, of making TV accessible for every family. She's not so known, obviously, outside the United States, but Julia Child had, without a doubt, huge influence. For me, it was more, I saw somebody that was having so much fun just doing TV. You could argue, was she a natural or not? I don't know, but she was having so much fun. So, you learn from watching people like her. But I think she made a lot of Americans learn about cooking with her shows. And obviously, I'm sure her book is her books, because she has many, some of the most important books. So, it's like, for example, this book here, let's see what is the other one? What is so? This one is the physiology of taste. This is 1826. This is the guy that in the first edition, he died very much upon publication of the first edition. So he barely saw the first edition himself.
French?
French. In the first edition, the name of the author, as you can see in the cover, is non-existent. And he seems he did it on purpose, because what he was writing here was so cutting edge for the time that I think he wanted to remain anonymous. His friends will know, but for the vast majority of people, he wanted to remain anonymous. But this is the guy that said early on, tell me what you eat. He wrote like commandments in a way of the good eater, of the gastronomer. So again, he did what they call two tomes in French, two books. And here, I'm reading this not very well. He said this one phrase that everybody repeats. Dis-moi ce que tu manges, je te dirai ce que tu es. Tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are. But this guy had also this amazing vision. He said on these, I mean, he called them aphorism, but very much were phrases that he believed was the heart of what he wanted people to know about food. But he said that the destiny of the nations will depend in the way that they will feed themselves. So this book is very important because he was a visionary ahead of his time. So if you never read the physiology of taste, that's okay, the world continues. But if you really want to know about the history of food and the thought process of food, you have to read this book.
So Spanish, English, French, Italian, fluent in all of those?
Well, I studied French when I was younger, so yeah, I can go through a book.
Is that helpful in your work?
It is helpful because these books were in French before they were in Spanish, but very much Latin. It takes you longer to read, but if you're patient, even if you didn't study Latin, knowing Spanish, you can understand Italian and you can understand French. It will take you longer, but you could figure it out. It's good that all these languages came from Latin. I studied Latin. I didn't pass one exam, but I did study. And anyway, in the case of Physiology of Taste, I have other editions in English. I have first edition in English, first edition in Spanish. I like to collect them. Don't tell me why. Friends of mine tell me it's a waste of money thrown out to all books. But okay, fine, but I disagree. I think it's important. Just to open a book and smell them, it's kind of very important. I will say it's not only very important, but necessary to understand who we are. Let's see all the books. I mean, every one of these books has such a big history that I feel I remember almost all of them, but sometimes I need notes to remember every one of them. Let's see. Some of them is long time. I don't even see. Don't open. That's why it's important to keep track of all your books. This one was from 1814. And this is Mrs. Randall. And these are many of the books that in early 1800s were books used for home cooks, for families. Used to know what, in this case, look at Randall originally prepared this work for the use of her married daughters. In the days that maybe, in my case, I grew up in a family where men would cook. Even it's good. Mother's cooking is like no other cooking. But obviously these books, look at 1814, done in London, but a book that was done for family, but then and being published and books that made it into America later on, and sometimes even American writers or publishers will copy the entire book, but then print it under a new title, and then somebody you signing. We have many cases of those kind of copycats, like Amelia Simmons, one of the first American books printed in 1700. Is the argument that was a copy of early British Polish cookbook.
Chef, as somebody who cooks and writes books. Is there a similarity in the approach?
Well, sometimes you go through these books and they are almost like just very boring books. That is recipe after recipe. But sometimes it's amazing things. There are certain ingredients that this first time you say, oh my God, it's first time I see this ingredient. No? Always searching in books from Europe. When is the first time a tomato show up in a recipe? When the first time a green pepper show up in a recipe? Those are amazing moments. And sometimes even as much data we have, and even now with ChatGPT, sometimes not everything is in AI either. You have to go and find on your own. You have to go to a library and you have to do, and that's why it's great that we have a lot of people in the world of food that still today keep researching about the beginnings of things. I mean, going back, 200 years, but going back over 3,000 years or more. Going back to the Egyptians, that you will see use certain drawings or certain hieroglyphics that will be telling you, oh, shit, these guys, they were producing foie gras, and they were not producing for food, but very much because they will do homage to the gods and everything, but then I'm sure became a delicacy. So it's things like this that in the history of feeding humanity that is in many ways very, very fascinating. Look at this one. From Portland, Oregon. Look at this writing. 1879 it was written. But this 1877 cooking manual. I mean, it's so many of these books that you stuff. But look at this is from Oregon, and this is 1877. I mean, already it's not so old. But look at this is one amazing Spanish sauce. Every time I go books, especially books Americana, I'm always, as a fellow Spaniard, very surprised and very amazed that I have so many recipes that always keep talking about Spain and Spanish sauce. In this case, look at this one. I didn't even see it. First time I see it. This one because I had ham, Spain and ham. But this had to have on tomato. Everything in Spain is because it has tomato. Well, no here. Lean meat, chop, season, salt, quarters, pepper, herbs, simmer gently, hour. So this one will be a Spanish sauce that has no tomato. I cannot believe this thing. Carrots, onions, dry flour. Oh my God. We have a Spanish sauce that has no tomato, because usually anything in Spanish will usually have tomato. But in this case, it's more a Spanish sauce that is kind of a brown sauce that has meat and other things used to make it really a Spanish brown sauce. So fascinating. A Spanish sauce with no tomato. That's very, very, very rare.
Now, I noticed two newer books here, Chef, on the shelf down here.
Oh, this
right here.
Yep.
Fast Food and God in a Cup. What are those about?
Well, doesn't mean that they're here. I read, this one is upside down. Well, not everyone, Michael Weisman, to Jose, my new friend, with boundless admiration and warmth. I met him in 2009. But got in a cup, my friend.
Coffee.
The perfect coffee. It is great that these naughty people, in a good way, that are always doing books about what they love. In this case, this guy, obviously, but about. But look at this one, for example. But look at the first entry in this one is 1795. And you can see that it's very much every single entry. 1795, 1796. Take a look at this. This is not a cookbook, but you will see, it's written in French, 76. This was a personal kind of, not even diary, but this was November 24th, 1795. Mrs. Julienne. And then he will tell you 7 pounds, sometimes of butter, 7 pounds of flour, bacon, pork fat. So So if apples, you could see sometimes the season. This is from February 25th. And this was a way for him to keep. So these gentlemen, I'm trying now, because I'm caught off guard, I'm trying to refine my memory.
1791?
Julien Honoré was his name. He ended living in Pennsylvania. And the fascinating story is that this is the closest thing I have to one of the early presidents of the United States of America.
Have you ever looked
So-
at old White House menus?
But take a look. Yeah, but this is far away older than the old White House menus. This guy, for example, Souther, this was a Civil War guy, maybe 19, maybe 20, I don't think more. This is 1863, all the way to the Battle of Vicksburg, very much. This guy left Sydney, Ohio, where he was from. And as you see, this is the closest thing to Twitter, where he filled up every day, everything he was cooking or eating. These guys, Mr. Souther, is very unique because not all battalions had their own dedicated cook, but seems he was just the main cook of his battalion. And I was able to get, this is his photo, which I was very lucky to be able to get. And this was a reunion after the war ended back in his hometown in Sydney, Ohio. And he was from the 20th Regiment. So fascinating. But the fascinating is the connection between his unwritten recipes, but very basic. But it's amazing that he will tell you when he made a blueberry pie because there were blueberries, or when he will bake bread because that means at least they were one entire week in one place without moving. So only by those little things you began learning what was going on.
Have you ever attempted a recipe from a book like that, or from one of
no,
these?
because was no recipes, but you can find enough inspiration. But I will try to go to the local newspapers back in the days to try to connect what was printed in local newspapers or anything else with what he was written in his own column. But this can take you a lifetime. Actually, we have a pre-made script, what could be a movie. Because this guy will never go to the front lines very much. Even a couple of times seems he had to be defending himself, but he will be always in the back. He was waiting for his comrades to come back from the front lines of the battle.
How often are you
Very fascinating.
reevaluating or updating your own popular recipes?
It never ends, like everybody. A little bit more of salt. You are always a little bit more or a little bit less. You are always doing that. It never stops. Sauces used to be very heavy in the old days. If you go to many of the old books, hold on, because I'm trying to look if I have. Every one of these books is so interesting on its own. I don't know what it is, but I have a book about how to kill people without nobody noticing how you kill them. And that's a recipe book about killing people, which is kind of interesting.
If somebody was to pick up one of your books, which one would you recommend? What would be for a new cook, for somebody who's new to this?
Well, I want everybody to cook Spanish. Buy my Spanish cookbooks. I have two. I have one more in the making. I think it's almost secret still, which is José, the Spain of José, as I grew up as an older chef here in America. But I want everybody to cook Spanish. Even I want anybody. The good thing about taking an ethnic cooking and making it your own is that is the great way not only to learn about that country or those traditions, but then it's just a good bridge to cooking itself. And at the end you learn cooking like I do, cooking from any country or any ethnicity or any ingredient from around the world, right? This is one of the best. This is El Bulli. Everybody should own this. Not cheap collection, but El Bulli, best restaurant in the last 100 years of humanity, from Ferran Adria. He is one of these chefs that during the 30 years of his restaurant, he has cataloged every single recipe, but every single creation. Nobody has created more recipes than this guy, but more important, nobody has created more new techniques than this guy.
Now, what are you
So
making? What are you
we're doing
making? What are you making?
leftover, making sure these tomatoes don't get broken.
Do you cook for the family?
Yeah, all the time. Well, I mean, every man should be cooking for the family. Yeah, I cook. I made this eggplant, baby eggplant, and I make these peppers are amazing. So I made like, make a whole bunch of them. I don't make many of them. I want to run out of them during the year. I don't like to be serving them 5 years later. But I make sometimes.
Is there a difference between gas and electric?
Electric is okay for people that don't cook. Yeah, electric. Electric is okay, but if you cook electric, not there yet. I like gas.
So what's in there so far?
Nothing. Garlic, olive oil, and tomato. But I fry the tomatoes. I don't boil the tomatoes. When I put the tomatoes, you saw the. Now, obviously, the juices, but at the beginning they're frying because then
they're
they
being
get,
fried right now?
Now already the water has taken over, but at the very beginning the tomatoes fry with the oil. That's when the tomato sauce is really good. That's why my tomato sauce is the best one ever, because we fry the tomatoes, and then you add the water at the end. You don't put the water when you peel the tomatoes. You keep it on the side. You want to make sure that the water, so you can fry them. And then you want the water because it's flavorful, but not at the beginning.
Chef, is there a recipe you have tried time and time again and feel frustrated with?
No. If I try time and time again, I probably mastermind. What I'm frustrated is about all the recipes before I die. I will not have the time to cook. It's too many. It's not enough lives.
Is it scientific?
No, it's only not enough. It's not enough days in the.
No, I mean, is cooking scientific?
Oh, obviously. Always was. I don't know why I messed up in this. Always was, always is, and always will. Before we didn't know why, but now we know why. The why of many things is obvious. And that has made cooking, better.
Do you encourage improvisation?
Yeah, you have to improvise. There's no one recipe that you have all the ingredients. I mean, you can if you're very, very organized, but how many times people want to cook from a book and they don't have all the ingredients? So what are you gonna do? Stop it? So you need to improvise. Improvisation and cooking goes hand by hand. Adaptation wins the day. You can only plan so much. It's not two recipes that usually it's difficult to come. I mean, pastry maybe more, but every other cooking is, it's the beauty of cooking that is hard.
In your cookbooks, do you write all the recipes?
Yeah, well, I have a whole team behind me that make it happen. But yeah, I'm usually the beginning or the end, but then everything in between is a whole bunch of other people. But many recipes I'm only the troubadour, sharing the recipes in my new books of recipes somebody cooked before me centuries ago, probably, like all of us, right? It's recipes is the gift that keeps on giving, right? Everybody keeps adding, and sometimes you go back to the most simple things, right? This is simple. Who made the first tomato sauce? We know and we don't know. But I'm sure somewhere in Mexico, somebody was making tomato sauce. Even seems tomato sauce came from Europe back to Mexico. At least in the way we understand tomato sauce from the European point of view. But I can tell you the first tomato sauce was Spanish in an Italian book, and the name of the recipe was a Spanish sauce, was sauce español, and that was the tomato sauce. So, in case anybody has doubts, Spain was first.